Hello and welcome to this week's Coaching for Self-Belief podcast with Pete and Andy. So Pete, what have you got this week for us?
Well, it's an interesting story around leading questions and people trying to give the right answer and dropping into analysis. So I was coaching a teacher who's very entrenched in, leading questions and drawing stuff out of kids, but she knows the right answer all the time. And it's funny watching her on court because whenever I even look at her, she looks at me like, "Oh, what have I done wrong?" and this is what made me think about it, because she was standing in a place which I thought was a good place to stand in a double situation, and I was just I went to the net and I stood at the net post and I just looked across at her and she looked across at me and she moved to a different place. Which made no sense, but some part of her was thinking, "Oh, he looked at me, I must be doing it wrong, so I'll move over here." and then she looked at me, and then I started laughing and explained it to her, and she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, "you're right." She said, I just thought I'd done it wrong. And so, we're into the whole discussion around judgment and people trying to please the teacher and give the right answer, and of course when you're doing that, you're not seeing what's really happening. You're not really thinking for yourself. You're not valuing your own experience of what's happening. So it was funny, but it was actually a really nice learning moment for her to begin to trust herself a bit more, really.
Yeah, just very quickly, when Tim always asks that question, it's Timothy Galway always asks that question, how many shares have you given away to other people in yourself? If you're the CEO of you, which we all are, how many shares have you given away to other people? And it sounds like she'd given quite a few shares away to other people.
Yeah, throughout a life in education, given lots of shares to lots of different people. Yeah. So I was talking to another coach at our club, and she said, with the children that she's teaching, it's such a big thing. And I jumped into a session that she was running, and there's a lovely open question that she asked, and it was interesting just to see the kids. There were 4 kids, and 3 of them you could see were kind of desperately trying to find an answer that the teacher would be happy with. And so
I'm smiling, but it's quite sad, isn't it, as well?
Yes, yeah. So we're trained, aren't we? We're trained to survive somehow in this world of judgment from a teacher, and trying to please them, trying to give the right answer.
We're trained to be compliant, aren't we?
Yes. So, when you're not in awareness mode like that, then the question is how can we as coaches help people to get more into reality and not jump into analysis and trying to give the right answer? How can we get them to feel safe enough to share their experience?
Well, it sounds like she became aware through your conversation after she'd moved, because she thought she was in the wrong place. So her awareness was raised at that point.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So that was quite a big learning for her, because the next time I look at her, she's going to say, well, maybe he's not looking at me because I'm doing something wrong. What am I doing, and does it make sense, and what am I really noticing here? So it's kind of, in a way, weaning somebody off that judgmental environment. And so how do you do that? As a coach, it's asking genuine, open questions would be one really, really good way, to me, of instilling more more of a feeling of trust and safety, that that the coach is just trying to find out what's going on for me, and they don't know. So this is interesting, and I feel safe to share my experience, and because it's not going to be judged to be wrong.
Mm.
So as a coach, simply this: ask a question that you don't know the answer to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask a genuine, open question, and the more of those that you ask, people begin to feel safe to share their experience, because they know that you haven't got a hidden agenda.
If I can very quickly just give you an insight into that from my own personal experience. We've got a colleague called Rob Shee, and he's very non-directive, and he does a fantastic job coaching using non-directive coaching skills. But what I've noticed myself is that when I ask an open question, there's a small part of me that actually wants to then progress what the person's telling me. So by progress, I mean suggest my ideas.
That's the hidden agenda, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And I noticed this. So today I was coaching a guy at table tennis, and he was hitting a forehand and a backhand alternately. And I stopped after a while and I said, "So what do you notice?" Just as a little conversation piece, just to find out where his awareness was. And he said, "Oh, well, I'm noticing moving in for my backhand, and then I'm moving out 45 degrees to play my forehand." And I said, "Anything else?" And he said, "No, I think that's just it." And I thought, great, let's just leave it at that. I said, "Okay, ready, let's carry on." But there's that hardest part, I believe, even for myself, and I've been doing this for a long time, was to just leave the learning over there with the player, and then just continue. Because it's all about trusting that the player will find their own answers as their awareness is increased, and as we also believe in the fact that they will find their own answers from their own experience, that they have the potential.
They can, yeah.
They can, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting that we all, and I suppose, like you said earlier, with your teacher, we're conditioned to do things like to give the right answer, and what we want to help people to do is to be more self-reliant on and more self-trusting of their own experience.
And out of that, they feel safe to become more self-aware and share their experience.
Yeah.
And that's when the learning can happen more easily.
So what could coaches take away from this, Pete, do you think?
Well, I would say, try and ask more open questions. The biggest open question is, what did you notice? But if you say, what did you notice? And underneath that, you've got an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might say, well, what did you notice about that forehand? And then whoever you're teaching comes back and says, well, I noticed this, noticed that. And then you say, yeah, but what about this?
Yeah.
That's your hidden agenda coming out.
That's right.
And for us as coaches to be aware of whether we're running an agenda underneath it, whether we've spotted something with our technical knowledge that we think is really important. And once we're aware of that, then we have a choice whether to share it then, or whether to allow the person a little bit of time to explore what they've experienced and see if anything can come out of that.
And if coaches are willing and wanting to try that question, I'd be interested to know from the coaches their comfort level, because from my own experience, I can feel myself feeling slightly uncomfortable when I've lost control of the session a bit. And I know it's a really weird thing, but I do
it's
believe
being comfortable that you don't know what they're going to say, that you don't know the answer and what happens next.
Yeah,
And
so I'd really be interested in that.
Just to flip that around, rather than possibly some coaches feeling uncomfortable with that actually, for me, that's the fun of it, the not knowing, because that's what makes it an exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if we can hear from any coach's experience of trying this out, that would be fab as well, wouldn't it?
Very good.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, so enjoy your open questions and watch out for that hidden agenda.
Yeah, that's great.